Hello, my girls. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're having such a good week. It is currently Wednesday morning, and we are having on such a special guest today. I really feel like this is going to be one of my favorite episodes ever of this show, and I haven't even recorded yet. I'm about to have Taylor Nardone. He is our guest today, and I stumbled across Taylor on TikTok. He is a motivational speaker, breakthrough coach, and a performer. And he is just such a positive light. Oh my gosh. I've actually been sharing some of his clips because they're just so inspiring what he puts out on the internet. He has such a beautiful energy to him. Anyway, I've been sharing his clips on my stories for a while, just like saving his TikToks and repurposing them to my Instagram stories. And because I love them, and I think that he's just really gifted and just a beautiful soul. So I cannot wait to have him on the show today. I feel like this is going to be a life-changing conversation for some reason. So this episode with Taylor is going to be all about overcoming fear. We're going to talk about positive mindset and really how to cultivate a mindset that is serving you in our world today. And, you know, that is such a practice and something that takes such dedication to stay in the light, if you will. We are going to talk about mental health, what to do if you struggle with self-sabotage, all of his tips for self-sabotage. We're going to talk about being in alignment and how you can know if you're in alignment, manifesting, calling in greatness into your life, and self-love and how to cultivate self-love. So let's get into this episode with Taylor. I just know it's going to be a good one. I thought we could start with just some affirmations because I feel like you're so good at them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, hello, everybody. All right, so listen, we have to start off with my favorite one, and this is the foundation for everything, which is every single morning when you wake up, you say to yourself that everything is coming to me in the perfect way, in the perfect circumstances, and in the perfect time. There is nothing to fear. There was never anything that I had to fear. All is well, and everything is working for my highest good. And if it's not this, it's going to be something better. So we get to walk through life open to anything and attached to nothing. All is well.
Whew, chills.
Good way to start, right?
Good way to start. Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna have chills throughout this whole episode because, like I said, I just really resonate with the way that you speak. And
Thank you.
yeah, so I want to back up though before we really get into the mindset work. I want to hear your story because I think a lot of times people like you that have this really powerful message to share in the world usually have an interesting story. Like we've been through some things that led us to have this a little bit of a awakening. Or have you always been this way?
Yeah,
Have you
no,
always
good
been
question.
so passionate about your mindset?
Right. You know what? I think in some capacity I have. You know what I mean? I always was like, I mean, people used to joke in middle school. They were like, try and make Taylor mad. I, for some reason, was just not. I was always happy. I don't know. But I have my moments, of course. I'm very human now, you know, but had this kind of bubbling under the surface. But really what happened was I was a teacher for 5 years and I loved what I did. I really enjoyed it, but I felt very almost asleep during that time, and that I was kind of sleeping on different parts of myself, different gifts that I had. And I had just a very profound kind of personal and spiritual awakening that came out of nowhere back in 2022. And doing what I was doing and the success that I had, I was well respected there. After 5 years in the district, and it was terrifying because everybody in my life was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, I'll figure it out as I go. So that's kind of how the journey began for me. So I kind of was the person that was taking those really bold moves, and I just decided to document it. And everyone was kind of like, okay, well, wait, this is kind of cool. What's he really doing? So that's how it all began. I mean, I definitely have had my fair share of experiences throughout life that I can pull some wisdom from for sure. But I think this chapter, that was kind of the catalyst for it. And it's just led me to, again, being open to anything and attached to nothing. And it started off for me a couple of years back where, again, I was documenting the journey. I was kind of playing around with just documenting life. And then about a year ago, around this time, I started to kind of intuitively post what I post about now, whether it's the different affirmations or some mindset things or just some general intuitive messages I felt I was getting. And my gosh, the rest is history.
Yeah. Wow. So it really was just intuitively led.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I had no idea when I left my job what I would be doing. Everyone was like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm just going to work at a restaurant for a time. We'll figure it out. And
Yeah. Wow. Do you meditate? Were you like
I
spending
do.
time in
Just
meditation,
happened.
kind of getting clear during that time? Or was it just like this overwhelming, I got to change my life?
It was a little bit of both. It definitely was an overwhelming, I got to change my life. So the story was I was a music teacher, so I'm a singer as well. And I loved teaching music. It was great. But at the time, I was getting my master's to go off and teach general education. So like second or third grade. And so I remember the day my principal handed me the certification. He was like, "You did it." And he knew I was going to start looking for jobs in general education. So it was probably going to be my last year at that school, anyways. I remember getting handed the paper and being like, I don't even think I want this. And that's what
Wow.
began it all. And it was this spiral. So over the next, it took me about 2 months, but I sat on it. I did meditate on it every day. I asked for signs left and right. I got them all. But I think the meditation was key because I had to just kind of tune out the noise. And I was like, you know what?
Yes.
Let me give myself this time. And if I get that clarity, then I'll know what to do. And I did.
I think so often in life when we're getting feedback from people in our personal life being like, are you crazy? Are you sure you want to blow up your whole life? That means you're onto something. When I started on social media, it's been almost 7 years now, but I had a very similar reaction. And that was kind of like before anyone was really doing the whole social media thing.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone in my life was like, you're nuts. Are you okay? Like, has Taylor gone off the deep end?
Right. Oh,
You're just
yeah.
doing something people haven't done in that way before.
But
I kind of think that
well,
means
and
you're
let's
onto
say
something
this too.
good.
Yeah. And it's not even that you're crazy. You're just the first one. That's all that
Yeah.
it is. So you're
I've
not
seen you say
crazy. You're
that
just first.
before.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
that's really
that.
all it is. You have to be the trailblazer, and the trailblazer always like people are like, "What's going on?" It's like, hold up, and then what's funny is that they have a delayed reaction later. So later
Oh,
they're like,
yeah.
"That's so cool, what you doing?" I was like, "Where was that a year ago?" you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Can you speak to that? Maybe anyone out there listening that has a dream, but everyone thinks they're
Mm,
nuts. And it doesn't have to be anything in entertainment or anything. It can be any
yeah,
dream. But can you speak to that? If everyone's giving them shit and hating on them, what do they do? What should they
right.
do?
Well, first of all, I think the first piece to understand is that it kind of makes sense why they're operating that way based upon their life experiences. So I think sometimes we forget that everyone's lived their own story. I used to walk around in college and go, do you ever just think about what that person's story is? You pass all these people in all these different, the supermarket, whatever it is, and you're like, we never stop and actually have a conversation, but everyone's been through so much. So when I started to go through that, and my family was really pushing back. I actually had to kind of objectively look and I was like, you know what? It makes sense why they think that based upon how they were raised. And it's more so
Yeah.
coming from a place of love. Now, I think sometimes too, and maybe coming from a place of control from other people, but I think having first off that perspective of, is this really about me or are they rejecting something within themselves? They actually wish that they could go off and do
Mm.
that. And I also want to encourage people to lean into their quiet authenticity, which means that not everything has to be vocalized sometimes about your journey. And it's not about necessarily, oh, I have to protect myself. It's more so from a place of you can kind of carry your authenticity and your story with you, but maybe you just talk to them a little bit later about that, right? And so I think when
Mm.
people present it in a way where they say, oh, well, what are you doing? This is insane. You simply respond, I understand that this is different than what you've done, and I'm going to figure it out as I go. Because most people forget that upon taking a leap in their life that they still have their brain on the other side. So they can still function. And I think sometimes our loved ones forget about that. So if people are giving you a hard time and all this type of stuff, I mean, listen, in those moments too, I quietly say to myself, that's not my energy to take on. And it makes sense why they think that, but it's absolutely something that they're projecting on. And just know that in that moment, whether you have an interaction or not, or whether you even respond, you were just their teacher for being able to make them
Mm.
reflect, because they are going to go back and think about it, on why do they have such a heightened reaction? Because they'll watch you succeed. Your success is inevitable, right? So it's all good.
Yeah. Gosh, wow. I'm a big believer in when you have a new idea or a dream or something, being so specific about who you let in. I want to ask you this too, but are you an Abraham Hicks listener at all?
I am.
I
I
feel
actually got up on the
yeah.
stage once with Abraham. My first time seeing Abraham. I'm not even
Oh my
kidding. Right
goodness.
after I quit my job, 2 weeks, I
Yeah.
was like, wait a sec, let me see if Abraham's still touring. I found out
Yeah.
she was, went there, oh my gosh, it was a whole thing. So yes, I love
Yeah. Okay.
Abraham.
I had a feeling that you
Yes.
were just listening to your videos. Those videos that when
Mhm.
it's something that's so dear to you,
I
like
think I've
a
heard
new
through.
manifestation or a new dream, to keep it close to your heart in the infancy stages, because you want to be so careful on whose energy you're letting into that beautiful thing
Huh.
that's going to come to fruition. goes into I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about building your mindset.
Where do I start? I want to get to these heights. I want to do this first over time. So for anyone listening who's going, okay, whatever's laced on your heart is for you, but it also means that the journey is for you, which means that it kind of makes sense why it's there and you're here. So there's many steps to get to before you get there. So when it comes to the mindset piece, all of this is going to happen for you as you start to take one step at a time. You will be presented with the perfect experiences to show you that there's nothing to fear. Things are working for you. The dots have always connected themselves, and the dots will continue to connect. So I think the beginning of the journey, and I work on this with clients as well, is you kind of have to begin at the blank canvas, which is you have to learn how to tune out a bit of the noise that's infiltrated your mind and kind of that internal civil war, and anchor yourself back to where you are right now in this present moment. And when you're able to do that, you gain such clarity and you realize that what is the fear? It almost subsides because the fear takes you out of the present moment. So I think the first step is learning what it means to be in your body, be in your energy, and just exist and savor what is. And once you learn to savor what is as you go, you start to consciously keep track of how things are lining up along the way. And that's the fun part. And then once you have the evidence of that, that evidence turns into a very strong belief. And when that belief becomes strong enough, you've thought it that many times over and over, it turns into a knowing, and then no one can shake you. So that's really the trajectory of how it goes.
Wow. And how long do you think that process takes?
So here's the thing too, when you step on your journey, and I know some folks listening have some big dreams out there, right? When you step on your journey and you're on your path and you're taking those leaps, just because it's for you doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And I think we sometimes forget that. And there's two types of difficult. The first type of difficult is staying in a box that you don't want to be in. And we always get sick of that. The second type of difficult is going down the path and having to confront all of the things you have to release to get there anyways.
Oh so my gosh, if you like childhood stuff or anything, right?
All of it, you have to go within. So if you allow that to happen and you choose to do that inner work and you choose to listen intuitively in that heart space to what is coming up, I mean, this for me has happened in about 1.5 years. Coaching practice last May, it had been not even a year yet. So things happen now even faster than you expect when you choose to allow them to, but you have to listen and just respond accordingly.
It sounds so simple, but I'll speak for myself personally. That's one of my biggest lessons in this life is really getting on the other side of fear. Ever since I was little, I was kind of always an anxious girl. And I wouldn't say I live in fear now, but it's a muscle that I have to work to not be in fear, to return to love. And that really is my mission with everything that we do on the internet, at least. But it's not as easy as it sounds. So how do we do that for anyone listening? How do we make sure we're not in a state of fear moving throughout the world, especially, and I could talk about this on my high horse forever, but just when we're bombarded with so many messages of fear, 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 how do we stay in this place of allowing and love?
Well, by not expecting to stay there too, I think is a piece of it because we are going to oscillate so beautifully. You're right. I mean, I could talk about that all day too. It's, it's like the fear that's pushed on us. It's like, it makes sense. And when I launched, and it's kind of, unfortunately, it's placed on us to kind of keep us very small and under an element of control, which is tough, So when it comes to really moving through that and beginning to allow, it's very conscious work. So it's noticing the narration that's going on in your mind. And I think there's a powerful saying, one of the first books I read that I loved was The Untethered Soul. And that was one of the first books on my journey. And just even the concept that your thoughts are like waves on the beach and they always pass when we stop giving it that jet fuel, that ammunition, or whatever we want to call it, that emotional response. And you begin to notice your patterns and conditioning. It almost zooms you out for a moment and you're re-anchored to physically what's happening in front of you. And then you realize you have a choice in what direction you want to think. Abraham Hicks calls it the better feeling thoughts in a new direction. And so for me, it's very liberating to realize that no matter if I spiral down here or choose to spiral up this way, the sun is still shining, the birds are still chirping outside, and nothing's really changed. So I think it's allowing yourself to allow means noticing how nothing is crumbling around you in this very moment if you were to even shift your perspective. And as you notice that and you do it more, then you realize, wait, things are still working. Keep track of the good. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's so true. I don't know. I'm sure you notice this even like in your own personal conversations, but my husband and I will be having a conversation and now we say to each other, disc, when we've hopped on a disc that is just not going anywhere, we now try and retrain it. Like we'll say disc, and we went through some pretty hard stuff last year with a health issue he was going for. And in order to kind of get our relationship back into a good place, we started doing this because we realized we were just operating on this old narrative that was old energy and not even the reality anymore. Like everything's good. The 17 seconds is so real, and you just have to read. It's just so crazy. But okay, so for anyone listening that is maybe struggling with depression or just feels like they're in a really negative mindset, or they're worried about the economy all the time or the election, whatever it is that they just feel like they're really overcome by negativity, what would you say to that person that wants to break free from that?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the first things is, you can break the thought loop by physically changing what you're doing. Most of the time when we're spiraling about something, we're on the couch, we're scrolling our phone, we're overstimulated. We kind of get in that really intense loop, which is difficult. But I think when you actually can break that by going outside, taking a walk, physically getting outside of your experience for a second, you're able to kind of zoom out and go, wait a second, okay, I was just able to change this in my current circumstances, and I was able to change that thought process. And now, wait a second, kind of similar to what we just talked about. Then starting to line up with some better feeling thoughts. And sometimes it's not 50 affirmations. It's just, you know what? I'm doing my best, period. Off I go. I'm going to go get coffee with a friend. Right. Yeah. And it's just meeting yourself, I think, where you are and just physically taking that one step, because it's hard to really see that elevated, beautiful, bright light.
What about for someone that feels like
when you're in the darkness,
they are living with a positive energy about them, but they feel bogged down about our world? Personally, that's something I struggle with, and I'm sure for the community listening, by the weight of the world.
Absolutely. Well, first of all,
like
it's
so
understandable. It's a very tragic world. It's horrific what's happening in the world. And I think what it comes back to is, first of all, we give ourselves permission sometimes to feel what we're feeling. I mean, emotions are energy in motion. We have to allow those to pass through. And then I think the other piece of it is recognizing as well, part of changing the world in such a beautiful way is getting to hold on to the piece of light that we do feel. And the light always does win, even in the midst of the darkness. Like, this is quite the duality we live in. We can have these moments of light and this heavy, heavy darkness. And we go, well, how are we supposed to feel this when this is here? And it's truly just allowing yourself to be where you are, feel what you're feeling, and then choose to continue to walk forward and say, you know what? Hopefully, me getting to step into the light in some capacity is able to help others around me. Because we always forget about the people, again, that we pass by in the supermarket, the little interactions, it's the holding the door for someone. And I know it sounds so small, especially when so much is going on, but my gosh, that does compound. And every day we have an opportunity to walk out into this world and send love. And so we can feel that heartache for the world and at the same time have hope. And I think part of this is we want to have a piece of hope as we move forward, because without hope, it's like, oh my gosh. And I think that we all innately in our heart and in our soul do feel that sense of hope. So we choose to walk in it as much as we can.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we forget because it can be overwhelming to be here at this time. But I had kind of like a spiritual awakening, I would call it, maybe 4 or so years ago now. And I went through my own health issues. The podcast listeners know. But I feel like it just made me so much more aware that in the notion that we came here at this time to kind of led me to really spreading more love and light in the world. I really believe that, like at this chaotic, crazy time, like I really believe that our souls choose. So we're going there on this episode. I don't always say that on the podcast, but
no, I believe it too. And I think too, first of all, if anyone listening, if you're surrounded by darkness right now and you feel that you're a light, it kind of makes sense, because if we're going to light up the earth, we have to place the light in places of darkness. So we can't have all the light together. We each experience our trials and tribulations. And I'm going to say this too about fear, because we walk through that fear, and none of us get out of this life without going through some form of personal hell. But there's something that happens on the way out that I call that kiss the ground moment. Imagine if you were like trapped inside this building, or something bad happened to you and you thought you were never going to escape. And then one day you finally escape and you just kiss the ground. You see the sun again for the first time. You would appreciate everything. Yes, get me in traffic. Sure. Scream at me, person on the road. It's okay. Like, it's just a whole new appreciation for the love that we have. And I think part of experiencing the fear is walking through it and realizing there was nothing to ever fear. And that's so beautiful in itself. You get to just walk right through. It just gives me chills every time I think about it because it's so much bigger than we can comprehend. But we are truly learning in this experience what love is in every capacity, what it means to lose love. How do we understand it? Love in the darkness, love in the light, crying on the kitchen floor with someone and just holding their hand. I mean, we experience it all, and it feels like madness, but there's something about it that it almost unites us in some way to have that common experience, you know?
The human experience. Yeah.
The human experience.
It's wild. Oh, man. Yeah, no, I have chills talking about that too.
It's a big one.
Have you always been a really powerful speaker? Like, have you always, I would say you're very gifted with your words. Have you always been that way?
Maybe in some other capacities. I mean, I was a teacher, so I'm definitely used to being up and talking, but I think honestly, just this past year and a half has been crazy. Like if I were to look at it logistically and be like, how did I start speaking this way? I think it just happened. So it's definitely a testament to the journey for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Can you explain for anyone listening, if it's not this, something better? I know you speak about that a lot. What does that mean? And how does that apply?
So it starts with the expectation of good to come. So one of the first things that I felt as well on my own personal awakening was just this notion of expect good to come. And I just kept on saying it. And it's interesting because it works in a couple different capacities. So your brain is going to find what you choose to focus on, right? So it's like the shiny new car syndrome. I really want that black Lexus. I'm going to see it everywhere. Same amount of cars on the road, right? But you see it everywhere. Yeah. So there is a notion of when you start to expect good, you start to seek it more. It does not. It just illuminates. So sometimes, by the way, does light force itself into any place as intense, obviously, as the bad, because that comes in with a whole vengeance. But the good is just beautifully sitting around us. So I think it's tapping into that. But when we say it's not this, it's something better, it really allows you to be unattached to the outcome in front of you. Because when you're unattached to the outcome, you allow yourself to keep moving down the stream. Why can't it be something a few more doors down? What if it is 99 doors that shut, but there's that one down the road? Right? And so when we say to ourselves, okay, wait a second, you know what? Yeah, that upset me, whatever it was. But if there's something better coming, I trust that there's good and you keep on walking. Oh, it's not that. No, I trust that there's good and you keep on walking and you will find the good and it'll present itself to you. And it reinforces, it's like a snowball effect.
Why is that when you search for the good, more good comes?
I mean, there's number one, I think the tangible way with our brains is, again, you know, what you're looking for, you will find, right? So I'm a big believer, if there's a problem, there's a solution. However, if you want to find the problem, you will find the problem. If you want to find the solution, you'll find the solution, right? So there is a piece of that. But I think from a spiritual perspective, like is always going to attract like. I mean, I think when you start to seek and search for the good, you will find it. There's some people in some really challenging circumstances and you can't tell them otherwise. They're like, nope, life is a blessing. And it's so beautiful. And it's not to make any of us think that we're supposed to be feeling this or that. I'm all about us honoring exactly what we're feeling when we are. But I think just realizing like, wait a second, okay, if we start to seek it, has it always been here? Have I missed it? Did I get in the tunnel vision and I was missing all these little golden nuggets of, oh, you get to go down this path. Oh, this worked out. Like, think about it this way to everyone listening. Think about everything that lines up today for you to go throughout your day and have a successful day. Now, what do we typically focus on? Again, for me, I'm in Massachusetts. We might be thinking about the traffic here. We might be thinking about the drivers. It could be thinking about what we're concerned about, X, Y, and Z. But when I look around, I'm like, oh my God, I have this beautiful home that I live in. Okay, I'm thankful I have this car. This car is still operating. I have all of these things that are just here to allow me to exist in that capacity. And it just completely shifts your vibration and completely shifts your feeling. And you do start to see it more. You just do. And the more you see it, again, it goes into that belief that there's good to come. And then you just know it. And once you know it, you do start to change your reality.
Let's dive into that, what you just said. Knowing that whatever your goal is going to happen. Why does that matter? I mean, I see it in my even personal relationships, and this is just all that we're talking about is just like a daily practice. It helps so much. It just made such a difference in my own life. But why does that matter? Like, rather than saying, maybe we can use the example of finances. That's such a common thing. People are like, oh, the economy. Everything's so expensive now, or I hear it all the time, money is really tight.
Well, I mean, I think there's so many different things here. You know, when we talk about your success being inevitable, your desires desiring you, all of this, when I say it's inevitable, I don't mean it's inevitable in the way that we think it is, right? So it's probably going to turn out very, very different. However, if we allow, again, going back to that allowing, grounding to where we are, seeing the vision and simply executing it based upon the inspiration that we receive in that moment, which is all your brain is meant to do. It is not meant to map out A to Z what's happening because it never goes according to plan, right? So if you're able to respond to that inspiration, then you're perfectly in your flow. But I think in terms of the mindset piece of this is, we're going to act upon what we believe. So there is a spiritual component of this with the divinity of all of this. And I believe it's a couple of things, right? So we're co-collaborating in us in our journey and that we have gifts from. So I think it's there's a creator of all of this that is guiding. Speak about ourselves and we speak about our situations, we want to make sure that we're attracting when it comes to how we seek in our life and what is also our divine will, which is health, wealth, prosperity, and love. Done. That's your divine will. So all of this is allowing you to become an open channel for that. So when you start to really attune to the abundance and you attune to the way you're speaking about it, it doesn't change the fact that you have bills to pay. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to be clear on that before you go on. I want to say, me saying what I said previously is not to discount anyone's situation if you're struggling financially or if you're afraid of losing your job. Like those things are real. But what we're talking about today is why it is better to reframe it in a way that you're not living in this like constant state of fear and maybe bringing more of that to you or whatever it might be. So anyways, go on.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, life is life and it's going to present it in front of you. But what if we took a few tangible steps to just shift the way that we're viewing it so that later on we act upon a different, better feeling snowball versus the one that's going in the opposite direction telling us it's doom and gloom. Yeah. So instead of it's I have to pay bills day, wait a second, no, that's a money date. You have a money date.
Yeah.
This is a money date for you. So every Friday is your money date. Take a look at your finances. Maybe you don't have enough money to pay all bills. You got money to pay some. Boom, there we go. And when it comes to money mindset, start thinking about how money is everywhere. The clothes I'm wearing are worth money. This microphone is worth money. I mean, everything is worth money. So wait a second, how am I separate from that? And what does that do? It leans you back into that good feeling. And let's discount everything else about what we're attracting for a second. I think we want to feel good. It doesn't change the fact that we're paying the bills. It doesn't change the fact that all this is happening. But what it does is it leans us into that expansion. And then when we're feeling good, we are more prone because we're expanding in that moment to hearing and seeing the solutions in front of us. So that's another thing too. When we live in that state of fear, we're very clouded. It's very difficult for us to see how there could be a solution to the problem. It keeps spiraling. So when we lean into those better feeling thoughts and how we can reframe our current circumstances while also still being in them, we start to lean into the possibility of what lies beyond. And we believe in ourselves enough and believe in the divinity of this enough, just this experience, to take those steps to start to move beyond it, if that makes sense.
It does. No, it does. And I think looking at the narratives, like back to what you were saying, looking at the narratives that you're telling yourselves and that you're telling others, are those really serving you? And I'm talking to myself too. I know I have narratives that I have to work on. You know what I mean? It's just, it goes so far.
And I think too, are they becoming self-fulfilling prophecies? How we speak about ourselves,
that you believe.
Right? Like, that you believe. And then subconsciously you're acting based upon, right? Yeah. So for example, if it's, I hired a new trainer, I'm eating really well, how are we speaking about that? Oh yeah, I'm on another one of those, it's like, no, you own that. This is you. You're stepping into that version. You're not trying to get to a new destination with an old version of us in the driver's seat, right? So we step into that new version.
Yeah. How can people do that?
Oh my gosh, it's the best thing in the world. So you really want to start to tap into, first of all, let's make peace with the fact that every version of us in the past has done the best that they could. However, we are not going to let the hurt inner child part of us drive the car. Of course it's crashing. They don't know how to drive and they don't want to drive. We don't need to build them up. They don't want to be built up. They just want to feel safe and with us, right? They need the current version of us. So everyone can start to tap into the future version, thinking about, okay, who is the version of me that is up on the hill smiling and they've already done it? They've made it there. What would they do? How would they respond in this situation? You want to talk about allowing and getting to be in the present moment? You tap into them, they would tell you to chill out. They would tell you to chill out, and it's so beautiful. So start to really think about, how are they acting? And I think about it this way, like when Beyonce goes on stage, Sasha Fierce is her, I think she had an album named that. That's her alter ego. So Beyonce, if you met her, she's like the quietest. Hi, y'all. How you doing? Like she's so quiet.
Oh, interesting.
Up on stage. That's her. So you get to kind of step into your own next level version of you when you're making some of these decisions and when you're really stepping into that new version. So let them take your hand as you start to walk and take these steps in new territory. It's new for the current and past version of you, but they've already done it. So it's a new level of confidence, and it almost energetically connects you to it. I mean, that's how I started my business. Like 2 months before, I worked with a coach who was talking to me about that. And every day what I did is I recorded a voice memo. Well, I recorded one and I listened to it every day, speaking from what I would consider to be that next level version of Taylor, who felt confident, good, energetically aligned. I spoke to the version of him that was a little insecure about what was going on, and I listened to it as soon as I woke up, and I was like, oh, he's got me. And then before you know it, you kind of morph into that. So it's really powerful.
Yeah, no, really powerful.
Yeah.
I love that so much. No. And it's almost like having an alter ego in the beginning,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Or the fake it till you make it. I believe in that silly saying so much. And like then too, when you sort of realize like everyone is just a person, we're all just a person. There's nothing separate from you or Beyonce. Like, I mean, she's incredibly, but she's also a person. Like,
it's true.
If anyone has that desire on their heart, the Beyonce beehive people are going to come for me. I didn't mean it like that.
But she says this though. She says that. She said that. I've heard her say that before in a show. Like I saw a clip of it. She's like, if I can do this, you can do this. And here's the thing. The version of us, like the version of Taylor for me, that's like on the couch at the end of the day, just a vibe and doesn't want to talk to anybody, is not the same version of me that's coaching or speaking up on a stage or performing. Like those are different pieces of me that I get to honor. So I think it's just like recognizing we are multifaceted. We don't have to be all things at one time. We get to step into that kind of high vibe, like celebrity energy at times. And then you also get to come down and just enjoy the quiet, whatever that means for you. So just like really honoring that.
Yeah, I love it. What would you say to someone that struggles with comparing themselves to others? If they're on their journey and they are afraid to start something because they're comparing themselves to someone that's like 10 years in, or even if they're feeling jealousy, if they're dating, or what do we do with the whole comparison? What would you say to that?
Okay, that would be like requesting, let's say, Asian cuisine at an Italian restaurant. You're talking about an entirely different restaurant, an entirely different story, an entirely different set of staff. You are talking about such different circumstances. So your story is not meant to look like someone else's. Actually, here's what it is. When you see people that have success in the field that you want to be in, congratulations. That means it's close to you. It's an example of what's possible, but for you, it's going to come in your own way, shape, and form. So think about it this way. Your story is not someone else's. And even the way that we've all been created, down to the hair, every bit of our personality, there is not one other person that is exactly like you, right? So you have your own perfect story. So when you see those things out there, oh, this person has that. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And guess what? That's an example of the fact that you can have that too in your own way, even better, that aligns with you. So you look at that as possibility. So all of these are examples of possibility. The closer that it gets to you and you see it more and more, the closer it is to unlocking in your own personal journey and story. But I think it's the key to all of this is really what we're seeking, right? So all of these visions that we have, these desires, are a representation of the authenticity that we have on our heart, like our purest light. And that authenticity is just that. It's just for you. So the key to unlocking this abundance for you in all of this is leaning fully into who you are and only who you can be, stepping into your zone of genius, which is untapped potential. Like only you can do it the way that you do it. Doesn't mean it has to be this unique career path or something that no one's ever done before, but you bring your special sauce to it. And when you do that and you lean into that, you understand that just like everyone else in their own way, you also get to receive health, wealth, prosperity, and love. It is all for you in the most perfect way that you cannot even comprehend how good it can get.
Yeah.
But it's just for you and it can't go to anybody else.
Yeah. What you said, the not viewing something that I desire as outside of myself, and then learning to, when someone has something that I want in the future or that I'm working towards too, to feel happy for them, and then also be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for that to come in for me. And that means it's possible for me too, has been one of the singular best mindset shifts I think I've ever learned, because it's life-changing. Oh my God, yeah. Like even growing up, I don't know who's teaching that. It was never my parents or anything, but you just feel jealousy. Like whatever it is, growing up, you just kind of learn jealousy is a thing, but then really that has changed my life. Like that alone.
Oh my gosh. And it just pulls you out of the suffering, the self-inflicted suffering that we
Yeah.
placed on ourselves. It's like we have so much going on. We don't want to harm ourselves. And I think also just one more thing on comparison, really be mindful of how we speak to ourselves. Like really be gentle. Would we speak to another person the way that we speak to ourselves, and just learning to treat ourselves with that same love? Oh my gosh. Could you imagine every day waking up, starting to treat yourself with the love that you have to give? I mean, it just connects everything. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. I had that down to ask you about too. Do you have any self-love tips like that you maybe do in your own life?
Yeah, you have to meet yourself where you are and just give yourself such grace and recognize that the way that you operate and there's things that you want to change. It's okay. I mean, first of all, it makes sense why you're operating that way. But I think really giving love to your younger self, find a picture of your younger self, put it out on your desk and remember that you're taking them with you. Meet them, write a letter to them with everything that they needed to hear. Right? Because I think, again, we almost stuff that part of us that's hurt in a closet, or we try and build them up. Like, you can do this. They don't need to be built up. They just need to come with us. So self-love is radical acceptance of who we are, flaws and all, because unless we think there's someone who's walking around here on this earth perfect, which there's not, then from other people that really aren't ours to keep on holding on to, that have told us that we're not worth something. So that's a return to sender moment. You just get to return that package, right? So I think that concept of self-love is just stepping into who you've always been, which is just you.
Oh, I feel like I could probably talk to you forever. I can't wait to come see you speak someday. I just see you. I was going to ask you like your personal goals or your professional goals. What's your end goal with everything that you're doing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Let's put it out there.
Yes. No. So I think my next goal that is happening this year is to start the speaking, kind of get up and about and start moving and grooving up on stage, which I'm so excited
I really see that for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way that things have lined up has been crazy. And just everyone knows this. Again, when I left my job a couple years ago, had no clue. Then when I started to be like, ooh, I feel like it's, speaking on stages is the calling, had no clue how it would come up, the things that have lined up. It's crazy. But that I think is up next and really starting to step into what that looks like. And then I think long down the road, I'm definitely getting back into performing in some capacity. I think the speaking and performing for me are going to like intertwine beautifully in some way that opens anything attached to nothing. No idea. I'm just here for the ride, But I would say this year, I'm definitely excited to be able to speak in front of an awesome crowd. And I look forward to when that happens.
Where can anyone listening find out about how to come see you?
Yeah. Okay. So I will have some information coming up on the specific event soon, but that would be on my website, which is taylorryannardone.com. But you can definitely find me on socials. I'm on TikTok as Taylor Ryan Nardone, as well as Instagram, pretty active on both, and you'll get all the good updates there.
I love it. And then I was looking too, the Royal Lamb, is that your other side business, or can you speak to what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Royal Lamb is actually, I work with an incredible team of coaches. We've kind of come together and built an awesome community for those that are kind of the dreamers, the big thinkers, and the doers in the world that are pushing against the grain. So all of my coaching is done through Royal Lamb. So if anyone ever wants to book a one-on-one session or work with me for a month or so, that is the site that you would go to book that. And again, that's on my socials as well. But it's such an incredible team of coaches. So you get to meet not only myself, but an amazing team that I get to learn from every day, which is awesome.
Amazing. And we will link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much, Taylor, for taking the time.
Thank you, Taylor.
And I can't wait for this episode.